At 20 years old, Mike Tyson was the youngest heavyweight champion in history, worth over $300 million, and the most feared man on the planet. By 35, he was bankrupt, broken, and sitting in a prison cell with a face tattoo that would mark him for life. The fall was so catastrophic that he lost everything: his money, his reputation, his sanity. How does someone go from untouchable to unemployable in 15 years? How does a man who earned $400 million in the ring end up owing $50 million to the IRS? This is the story of the greatest self-destruction in sports history. A kid from the streets of Brooklyn who conquered the world, then burned it all down. No opponent ever beat Mike Tyson the way Mike Tyson beat himself. Michael Gerard Tyson was born in June 1966 in Brownsville, Brooklyn, one of the most violent neighborhoods in America. His father abandoned the family before Mike could remember him. His mother, Lorna, worked multiple jobs just to keep the lights on. By the time Mike was 7, he was already stealing. By 10, he was mugging people on the subway. He wasn't big yet, but he was vicious. The other kids called him Little Fairy because of his high-pitched voice and lisp. So Mike learned to hurt people before they could laugh. He was arrested 38 times before his 13th birthday. Brownsville didn't raise fighters, it raised survivors. And Mike Tyson survived by becoming the thing everyone else feared. In 1978, at 12 years old, Mike was sent to Tryon School for Boys, a juvenile detention center in upstate New York. It was supposed to be punishment. Instead, it saved his life. At Tryon, a counselor named Bobby Stewart noticed the way Mike moved: fast, explosive, unafraid of pain. Stewart had been a professional boxer. He started teaching Mike how to channel that rage into technique. Within months, Mike was knocking out kids twice his size. Stewart knew he'd found something rare. So he made a call to the one man who could turn a street kid into a champion. His name was Cus D'Amato. Cus was a legendary trainer who had molded champions like Floyd Patterson. He was 72 years old, living in a big house in Catskill, New York, training fighters out of a small gym above the police station. When Bobby Stewart brought 13-year-old Mike Tyson to meet Cus, the old man saw something no one else did. Not a troubled kid. A future heavyweight champion of the world. Cus D'Amato didn't just train Mike Tyson. He rebuilt him from the ground up. Cus moved Mike into his house, became his legal guardian after Mike's mother died in 1982, and gave him a new religion: boxing. Every morning at 5 a.m., Mike ran 5 miles. Then came 12 rounds on the heavy bag, 6 rounds of sparring, calisthenics until his body screamed. Cus preached a philosophy he called the peekaboo style: tight defense, head movement, explosive counterpunches. But more than technique, Cus taught Mike psychology. He told him that fear was natural, that every fighter felt it, but champions learned to control it while their opponents drowned in it. He filled Mike's head with stories of Alexander the Great, Jack Dempsey, Spartacus. He told Mike he was destined for greatness. And Mike believed him. By 16, Mike Tyson was destroying grown men in the amateur circuit. His hands were fast, his punches carried the kind of power that ended fights in seconds. In 1985, at 18 years old, Mike turned professional under the guidance of managers Jim Jacobs and Bill Caton, with Cus still in his corner. His first professional fight lasted 1 round. So did his second. And his third. Mike wasn't just winning, he was annihilating. Opponents crumbled under the pressure. Some quit before the first bell even rang. In his first year as a pro, Mike Tyson fought 15 times and won every single fight by knockout. 11 of them didn't make it past the first round. The press called him Iron Mike. The streets called him a monster. Cus called him inevitable. But in November 1985, just as Mike's career was exploding, Cus D'Amato died of pneumonia. He never got to see Mike win the heavyweight title. Mike was 19 years old, alone, and about to become the most dangerous man in the world. On November 22, 1986, Mike Tyson walked into the Las Vegas Hilton to fight Trevor Berbick for the WBC Heavyweight Championship. He was 20 years old. No one had ever won the title that young. The fight lasted 5 minutes and 35 seconds. Tyson came out like a freight train, slipping punches, unloading hooks to the body, moving forward with terrifying intent. In the second round, he caught Berbick with a left hook that sent him stumbling across the ring like a drunk. Berbick tried to stand. He fell again. And again. The referee stopped it. Mike Tyson was the youngest heavyweight champion in history. Over the next 2 years, Mike unified all 3 major titles, WBC, WBA, IBF, and became the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. He defended his belts 9 times. Most of his opponents didn't survive 3 rounds. Michael Spinks, an undefeated champion, lasted 91 seconds. Larry Holmes, a legend, got battered into retirement. Frank Bruno, Tony Tubbs, Tyrell Biggs, all of them broken. Mike Tyson wasn't just winning fights. He was ending careers. The aura around him was suffocating. Fighters froze when they saw him across the ring. Some later admitted they were beaten before the first punch landed. Mike earned $20 million for a single fight. He bought mansions, cars, jewelry, tigers. He walked into a pet store and bought 2 Bengal tigers for $70,000 each. He spent money the way he threw punches, recklessly, violently, without thought. His managers, Jim Jacobs and Bill Caton, tried to guide him, but in 1988, Jacobs died of leukemia. That left Caton alone. And that opened the door for the most destructive force in Mike Tyson's life. A man named Don King. Don King was the most powerful, and most ruthless, promoter in boxing. He had a halo of white hair, a criminal record, and a reputation for stealing from his own fighters. He promoted Muhammad Ali and Larry Holmes, and both accused him of theft. Now he wanted Mike Tyson. King knew Mike was vulnerable. Cuz was dead. Jacobs was dead. Caton was losing control. So King made his move. He convinced Mike that Caton was cheating him, that white managers were taking his money. He whispered in Mike's ear that he deserved more. And he introduced Mike to a woman who would change everything. Her name was Robin Givens. Robin was an actress, beautiful, educated, charismatic. Mike fell for her instantly. They married in February 1988. It was a disaster from day one. Robin's mother, Ruth Roper, moved into Mike's mansion and started controlling his finances. She and Don King formed an alliance. Together, they pushed Caton out, fired Mike's longtime trainer Kevin Rooney, and surrounded Mike with yes men and leeches. Mike's spending spiraled out of control: mansions, cars, jewelry, entourage salaries. He gave Robin a $2 million diamond ring. He bought entire neighborhoods for friends. He had no idea where the money was going because he never looked at a contract, never questioned a bill. He just signed. Meanwhile, his marriage was falling apart. Robin later claimed Mike was abusive. Mike claimed she was only after his money. In September 1988, they appeared together on a live interview with Barbara Walters. Robin called Mike manic-depressive and scary while he sat next to her, humiliated, silent. A month later, she filed for divorce. The settlement cost Mike millions. But the real damage wasn't financial. The damage was inside. Mike stopped training. He stopped listening. He stopped caring. The monster that Cuz had built was starting to crack. On February 11, 1990, Mike Tyson walked into the Tokyo Dome to fight a little-known boxer named Buster Douglas. Mike was the overwhelming favorite. Odds makers gave Douglas a 42-1 chance. But Mike didn't prepare. He partied in Tokyo, showed up overweight, undertrained, and mentally checked out. Douglas, meanwhile, was fighting for his dying mother. She had told him he would beat Tyson. She died 3 weeks before the fight. Douglas came in with a mission. From the opening bell, Douglas jabbed Mike's face, kept him at range, refused to be intimidated. Mike looked slow, confused, mortal. In the 8th round, Mike landed a massive uppercut that dropped Douglas. But the referee's count was slow. Douglas got up at 9 and survived. In the 10th round, Douglas landed a clean right hand followed by a vicious uppercut. Mike Tyson crumbled to the canvas. He reached for his mouthpiece, tried to put it back in, and couldn't. The referee counted to 10. The most feared man in boxing had just been knocked out by a 42-1 underdog. The world was stunned. Mike lost his titles. He lost his aura. He lost his identity. Without the fear he generated, what was left? Over the next year, Mike spiraled. He fired and rehired trainers. He fought mediocre opponents just to stay relevant. And then, in July 1991, Mike met an 18-year-old named Desiree Washington at a beauty pageant in Indianapolis. She later accused him of rape. Mike claimed the encounter was consensual. In February 1992, an Indiana jury found him guilty. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison. On March 26, 1992, Mike Tyson, former undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, walked into the Indiana Youth Center as inmate number 922335. He was 25 years old. His empire was over. Mike Tyson served 3 years in prison. He converted to Islam, changed his name briefly to Malik Abdul Aziz, read history and philosophy, and trained obsessively in his cell. When he was released in March 1995, the world was ready for a comeback. Don King was still pulling the strings. He booked Mike for 2 tune-up fights, both ended in first-round knockouts. Then, in March 1996, Mike fought Frank Bruno and destroyed him in 3 rounds to reclaim the WBC title. 7 months later, he fought Bruce Seldon and knocked him out in the first round to add the WBA belt. Iron Mike was back. Or so it seemed. On November 9, 1996, Mike fought Evander Holyfield. Holyfield was older, smaller, and considered past his prime. But Holyfield fought smart. He clinched, he headbutted, he frustrated Mike. In the 11th round, Holyfield stopped him. Mike lost. The rematch came 7 months later, on June 28, 1997. It became the most infamous fight in boxing history. In the 3rd round, after another headbutt opened a cut above Mike's eye, Mike snapped. He bit Evander Holyfield's ear. Twice. The second bite tore off a piece of cartilage. Holyfield screamed. The referee disqualified Mike. The Nevada State Athletic Commission fined him $3 million and revoked his license. Mike's reputation was destroyed. He wasn't a champion anymore. He was a sideshow. He fought a series of forgettable opponents. In 2000, he knocked out Lou Savarese in 38 seconds, then told reporters he wanted to eat Lennox Lewis's children. In 2002, he finally fought Lewis in Memphis. Lewis dominated him. Mike quit on his stool after the 6th round. He never won another meaningful fight. By 2003, Mike Tyson had earned an estimated $400 million in his career. He was $50 million in debt. Mike Tyson declared bankruptcy in 2003. The mansions, the cars, the tigers, the entourage, all gone. He owed money to the IRS, to ex-wives, to lawyers, to promoters. He fought a few more times just to pay bills, losing to journeymen he would have destroyed in his prime. His final professional fight came in June 2005 against Kevin McBride, an Irish heavyweight no one had heard of. Mike quit after 6 rounds. He told the press, "I don't have the fighting guts or the heart anymore." He retired with a record of 50 wins, 6 losses, and 2 no contests. 44 of those wins came by knockout. But the numbers don't tell the real story. The real story is how a kid from Brownsville, Brooklyn, who should have died in the streets, became the most feared fighter in the world, earned a fortune, and lost it all because no one taught him how to protect himself outside the ring. Cuz D'Amato gave him discipline and purpose. But when Cuz died, the Vultures moved in. Don King, Robin Givens, Ruth Roper, the hangers-on, the yes men, they all fed off Mike while he was strong, then vanished when he fell. Mike spent money like it would never run out. He trusted people who didn't deserve it. He made terrible decisions with women, with managers, with his own career. And he paid for every single one. Today, Mike Tyson is sober, reflective, and surprisingly at peace. He's reinvented himself as a podcaster, an actor, a cannabis entrepreneur. He's spoken openly about his mistakes, his addiction, his rage. He's a grandfather now. But the lesson is permanent. Unchecked power, a toxic entourage, and zero financial literacy destroyed the baddest man on the planet. Talent alone is never enough. Without discipline, without protection, without wisdom, it all burns.